Hello, it's Mr. Hayes, and these are the four big ideas in AP Biology. So AP Biology is designed around these four big ideas, but there's more to it than that. Underneath these big ideas, there's these things called enduring understandings, which are a little more specific. And underneath that, we have essential knowledges and science practices. Now, these science practices are the tools that we use to physically learn the material. So they can be anything from the labs to looking at diagrams to making up our own data tables. It takes a lot of skill, per se, to really understand the core concepts behind this course. So the science practices are designed to do that. And the essential knowledges also are going to be really important in relaying the learning objectives, and there's over 140 of these throughout the year. And we'll get to all of this here on the first day of class, but this is how the course is set up for the new AP Biology. Okay, so the big ideas. There's four of them. The first one is that evolution drives a unity and diversity of life. So we can't talk about evolution without first talking about Charles Darwin. We all know that he was the guy that pioneered the idea of evolution through natural selection, but most people don't know his contemporary at the time, Alfred Wallace. Alfred Wallace, along with Darwin, they actually published a paper together that was a kind of a precursor to evolution through natural selection. It wasn't very well received from their peers, but it was what was important from that was that Darwin got his abstract from that paper that him and Wallace wrote together. In that paper, the abstract eventually became The Origin of Species, which is Darwin's famous publication detailing all of these things. But Alfred Wallace was his contemporary, gets none of the credit. All right, so what does that have to do with evolution? Well, from that, over time, we have really understood how things evolve and how they fit into different classification systems. This is the most recent one. This is the three domains of life, and it's a way of looking at organisms today. And so the unity of life all begins with this here, and this is going to be the common ancestor, right? So we all have a common ancestor, and the common ancestor for us, we don't know what it is yet. But this is where it all begins. And from there, we have a lot of different diversity from that. So we have bacteria and archaea and eukaryotes. Those are all three different domains that have very diverse, very unique organisms within each one of those. All right, so the second big idea is that living things use energy to reproduce and transmit information as well as maintain themselves. So if you think about a food chain is a great example of that. We have solar energy that plants use to transfer that into chemical energy, so that plant eaters can eat those. So those are going to be the herbivores. But with each one of these food chain steps, we have energy being transferred between organisms as well as lost to the environment. And so the energy flow is always constant. There's always moving of energy between either organisms or the organism and its environment. This example down here is going to be blood pH. And so blood pH is an example of how the human body can maintain itself. And if you don't know, the blood pH of the human body is actually 7.4. And 7.4 is slightly basic, and there's a way that the body uses that. It actually regulates that. Basically how it works, if there's a certain ion concentration in the blood, it's going to either take a hydrogen or not take a hydrogen. We'll get to that later, but basically there's a lot of chemistry involved, and then there's an exchanging of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and with that comes a stable pH of the blood, which is very good because we don't want a pH to be down and up. That would not be good for our homeostasis. All right, so the next big idea is that living things store, retrieve, and transmit information. This is kind of interesting. The human genome is roughly 750 megabytes of information. And if you think about the average song on iTunes is roughly 4 megabytes, it's pretty cool how many songs our human genome, that is all the genes in our body, can actually hold. All right, so that's not possible without protein synthesis. So in protein synthesis, remember we have DNA that's replicated in the nucleus, it's transcribed into RNA, and eventually that's going to couple with tRNA to help build proteins, which are going to be used from anything from structural support all the way to transportation and moving things across the body. So that's really important, and all that information in our bodies is kept within the DNA. Those are the instructions for the body so that they can do a particular action. Okay, last one is going to be living things interact with each other, and that's across all of the spans of biology. So that can be something from very macroscopic or very large, such as this hawk and bass predator-prey relationship, all the way down to the subcellular level. And so this is a pretty unique relationship with, of course, the hawk being the predator and the bass being the prey, but there's also symbiotic relationships where animals can work together. It's called mutualism. And there's also some where not so good, where animals are harmed while the other one is benefited. That's going to be parasitism. And that's an example of things interacting on the bigger scale. On the smaller scale, within a cell itself, there's a lot of different organelles that are working together to achieve a goal. And the goal, in this case, is going to be to divide the cell via mitosis. So during anaphase, we have these little things called microtubules. They're going to be part of a cytoskeleton system, and what they do is they actually shoot out from the poles of the cell and they attach the chromosomes to themselves and they pull them across the cell to either ends, and that's going to help split the cell into two whenever it's dividing. And that's a really intricate process, and there's a lot of coordination involved with that, and it's all on the subcellular level. All right, so that's an introduction into the four basic ideas, the four big ideas in AP biology. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments below. Other than that, I hope that was helpful.